Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking Batman vs. Superman Dawn of Justice. So, what I'm going to do here is first just sort of talk about some things about the movie in general, and I'm going to keep that pretty much spoiler free. Then, I'm going to talk about some stuff in more detail, and then we're going to get into a little bit of spoilers. Um, this isn't going to be I think one of my huge movie reviews. For example, when I did my review of Amazing Spider-Man, that somehow spiraled into being almost an hour. I don't think this video is going to be probably not much longer than most of my normal reviews, but I guess we'll see. I don't really plan these things out. A lot of it's just, as you've probably guessed from my videos, just off the top of my head. So let's just kind of get right into it. Did I like this movie? No. No, I effing did not. There were certainly some things about the movie that were good and that I did like. And those things are generally the things that most people seem to have also liked about this film. Ben Affleck, despite all the flack he caught about it, is pretty darn good as Bruce Wayne. Gal Gadot, I think that's how her name is said, makes for a really good Wonder Woman. In fact, Wonder Woman is probably my favorite thing from these movies. There are some nice Easter eggs and stuff for the comics. I was really pleased when Stryker's Island is a location that gets mentioned. Um, the and some of the philosophical questions that do get asked are cool. There are some little nice takes on ideas, and I mean, like I said, there are elements of this that are good. Um, the interpretation of Superman here in general is closer to what I think the character should be, but still has some very serious issues. And yeah, I kind of think that without getting too huge into it, that kind of covers most of it. There's some nice nods to the comics. The casting and stuff is for the most part pretty good. I really don't have any complaints about the acting. It's the story and the writing in general with this movie that I really, really have problems with. So here's where I'm going to have to get into some things that are a little bit more spoilery. So, didn't like the movie? Yeah. So from here, if you want to go if you want to say spoiler free, then now's your turn to step away. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Batman kills a crap ton of people in this movie. And while we have seen that in other movies, I remember as a kid watching the first Batman movie with Michael Keaton. I'm like, did Batman just kill some people? He's really not supposed to do that. And yeah, I mean, that's it. That is one of the big things. Batman and Superman, and generally the heroes of the DC universe as a whole, hold life to be sacred. Now, there are some exceptions, and over the course of all the stories that have been told about these characters, beginning, nice little nod here, with Perry White going, it's not 1938 anymore, which of course is when Superman first appeared, that yes, there have been stories where Wonder Woman, Batman, and Superman have killed people. But, and this is the thing, if you add up all the stories over the years where they kill someone versus all the stories where they do not, and all the stories where it is explicitly stated by those heroes and various other heroes of the DC Universe, I don't have the right to take someone else's life, it's not even going to add up to like 1% of those stories. So let me read you a tweet I found while people were talking about this, and let me call it up here. And this was someone tweeted this at a guy by the name of Dan Slott. Now he's best known actually as a writer of Spider-Man, but Dan Slott is a veteran comic book author, and I think he's more than qualified to sort of talk about how to interpret characters who have a long-standing history and legacy in a way that is true to them. So the person that sends this tweet to him says to him, characters change all the time in comics. People just pick the classic versions of them they're the most familiar with. Just adapt. And Slott responds with, Killing and murdering aren't changes. That's misunderstanding the characters on a fundamental level. And that's it. That nails it. I even read this interview with the director Zack Snyder where they say like, hey, so Batman killed a whole bunch of people, and he's like, yeah, but for him, it's sort of like Batman is very careful not to make sure that civilians don't get hurt, and in his mind, it's really more like manslaughter than murder. I'm like, Batman doesn't commit manslaughter either. And then, I mean, there's this one scene in the movie where he's fighting this thug. The thug stabs Batman. Batman pulls the knife out and freaking stabs the guy right back. Look, Batman is more than happy to beat a bad guy's ass, and he's sometimes even willing, if the person is a particularly loathsome person, to make it hurt. There's this one scene in The Dark Knight Returns, which is, of course, a heavy inspiration for this movie, where Batman is fighting some thugs, and he basically says to himself, like, okay, there are 8 ways that I can take these guys down. 4 of them will kill these guys. 3 of them, I can, disarm them and take them down with minimal pain. And the last one will hurt them a lot. And this being Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, he goes for the hurt them a lot but leave them alive. Now, in all fairness, yes, spoiler alert from a story from 1986, if I remember correctly, Batman does ultimately kill the Joker in Dark Knight Returns. But even by the end of it, he is regretful of it. He realizes that, oh, I've finally basically done what the Joker wanted me to do all along. I've become like him. I'm a killer. So, again, Batman, Superman, the heroes of the DC Universe, hold life to be sacred. While there may be occasional exceptions to this in the story, that is one of the core beliefs. And this isn't just the DC Universe. Again, over at the Marvel Universe, while there are sometimes exceptions, and Marvel is a little, in my book, more willing to let their heroes kill under very dire circumstances, with, of course, exceptions like Wolverine and the Punisher and Deadpool, who are pretty free with the death dealing. But keep in mind, also, Captain America has unequivocally also killed people. But anyway, in any case, for the vast majority of heroes in mainstream comics, like killing other people is just not something you do, except perhaps under the most extraordinary of circumstances. And even then, as I've said, most of the time, those stories just add up to less than like 1% of the story about these characters. Here, they just don't give a damn. And I mean, as bad as it was with in Man of Steel, it's just like, oh my God, Superman, take the damn fight out of a middle of a goddamn major city. Here, it's just like, I mean, at least they sort of have a throw out like, oh yeah, this part of town has been evacuated. Well, I would freaking hope so. Now, you know what? I think I've made my point. I think I have made my point. Actually, no, I haven't. The idea that Batman is super paranoid, like he even says, like if there's even a 1% chance that Superman could ever go bad, then we have to treat that as like an absolute, this is totally going to happen. And this is somewhat in keeping with Batman, where there's been stories like the famous Tower of Babel story from Justice League, which is really cool, where he basically had all of these files on what do I do if these heroes should go rogue. Here's how I can take them down, and then they'd probably get stolen by Ra's al Ghul and used to almost destroy the Justice League. So, okay. But, I mean, Batman being just so gung-ho to go out there and kill Superman and treating him like, okay, there's this guy who's been going around for all this time trying and doing his very best to be helpful and selfless, and I have to sort of treat, like, there's the one tiny chance that he might do something bad, and I have to, like, this is totally going to happen. Oh yeah, I should totally go kill this guy. Now, yes, huge spoiler here. It ultimately is revealed that Lex Luthor has totally been manipulating Bruce Wayne and Batman, and he knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman and that Clark Kent is Superman because, Lex Luthor's really smart that way. I liked that. I like that Lex Luthor actually figured this out. And the idea is like, oh yeah, for like the past 2 years, I've been slowly manipulating Bruce Wayne so that I can use him as a weapon to kill Superman. That seems like something that Lex Luthor would do. And incidentally, Lex Luthor is also one of the things I like least about this movie. I mean, nothing against the guy that plays him. I know he was another really controversial choice. He's clearly going out there and having a blast with it. It's just this interpretation of Lex is a real embodiment of what I don't like about a lot of modern comedy. It's just like, hey, look at how quirky and eccentric I am. I'm funny and interesting. It's like, no, you're just a freaking annoying weirdo, and not, I wouldn't want to be anywhere near you. And people mistake this as being interesting and as characterization. And no, okay? Quirky and eccentric and interesting, yes, but you can't have just that. You have to have an actual character to hang all this on. You can't just shove out a big bottle of quirks and eccentricities and call it a character. That's not a character. That's not even a clown. That's just an absurdity. And I mean, there's these moments where he just goes, "If man won't kill God, then the devil will do it." I'm like, you know what that reminds me of? Is this story I read about Harrison Ford having this conversation with George Lucas back when they were making the original Star Wars. And Ford was looking through some of the dialogue, and he goes to Lucas and said, "Jesus, George, you can write this shit, but you can't actually have people say it." And it feels exactly like that. I mean, somebody should have been like, nobody would actually say this. Now, again, the comics and people make all kinds of ridiculous speeches all the time. Okay, fine. But still, even in comics, that would sound stupid. Okay, so as long as I'm briefly talking about things that I did like about the movie, there were two lines in the whole movie that that did genuinely get a laugh, and I was paying attention to this while I was watching the movie. The one was the moment where Wonder Woman shows up during the big fight at the end, and Superman goes, "Is she with you?" And Batman goes, "No, I thought she was with you," which makes no sense, as Bruce Wayne has previously met Wonder Woman, even though it was at that point that she's this immortal Amazon warrior person. So why is he asking Superman if she's with him? Or yeah. And then the other one is the line where Bruce meets Martha Wayne and goes, "Oh, I'm a friend of your son," and she goes, "He kind of figured the cape." And Batman just kind of smiles a little bit, and nods. I'm like, okay, okay. I have to admit that that's pretty funny. And that brings my other big point about why I didn't like this movie. This has to be the most joyless movie I have seen in I don't know how long. I mean, I don't think seriously there just is almost nothing that brings a sense of, well, pardon the expression, wonder here. The sort of joy that comes with superhero movies, the fun of them. This is just like, I mean, granted, again, they're taking a lot of inspiration from Dark Knight Returns, which is not a cheerful story. But still, even then, there are moments of lightness. There are moments of, wow, that was cool. Or, wow, somebody is actually happy. And here, there's virtually none of it. I mean, yes, there are a few moments here and there. Like, where Superman and Lois are, messing around in the bathroom and stuff like that. You know, Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince, sort of semi-flirting with each other and such. I mean, that's also kind of cool. Never really bought into the whole Batman Wonder Woman relationship myself, but that's a matter of personal taste. I actually like the Superman Wonder Woman thing that they have going on these days much better. In fact, the Superman Wonder Woman comic book is quite good from what I've read of it. I read the first collection. Anywho, let's see what else do we have. Other stuff. Well, they freaking killed Jimmy Olsen in the beginning of the movie. They don't even say that his name is Jimmy Olsen, and then it's never really brought up as much of a big deal again. And oh yeah, for some reason Jimmy was also a CIA agent. I'm like, seriously, I wasn't even sure if that was Jimmy Olsen. And then there's other stuff like I mean, if you don't, if you're not listening very carefully, you'll miss that the Asian lady that works for Lex Luthor is meant to be Mercy Graves. Now, I hadn't realized that some of her more recent interpretations of this character have had her be an Asian lady, but I mean, her name is mentioned exactly once, and apparently Lex Luthor also kills her. Why, Lex? Why would you do that? I mean, it is kind of established in the comics that Lex does value Mercy a great deal. Not that he wouldn't sacrifice her, he just wouldn't sacrifice her pointlessly like he does in this movie. And then this whole thing with Doomsday, it's just like, well, this seems like such utter bullshit. Because I mean, this is exactly what I was thinking was going to happen in the trailers. They're going to trot Doomsday out as some half-assed, last-minute mega threat, just so the heroes can unite, and that's exactly what happens. Never mind the fact that the first half hour of this movie is basically boring as hell. And of course, we get a whole, like I said, we get a whole lot more of, oh my god, they're blowing up the city, and ridiculous amounts of people should be dying. And speaking of, other things that I didn't even notice until, you really go through the fine print of this movie, like, oh, the Russian dude, oh, that's actually supposed to be KG Beast. Oh, gee, I mean, you can't really throw out the name KGB anymore because that organization's been gone for a long time, but still. Uh, what else? What else? Oh yeah, sort of the other heroes cameos so that they can set up the Justice League movie. Um, okay, when somebody from the future pops up, I'm like, who the hell is this? I mean, and I was reading, it was like, oh, I guess that was supposed to be the Flash. Um, I mean, man, this is one of the most ridiculously shoehorned setups for future movies that I have ever seen in my life. It's just like, really? If you were to cut this out of this movie, it really would not change a damn thing. Now, it doesn't change the fact that these setups are kind of interesting, but there's the idea of like, Flash, shouldn't you have been a little bit more careful about using your powers in a place where you know there would certainly be security cameras? Cyborg, yeah, not bad. I do kind of like that the guy that rebuilds him, playing his dad, is also the guy from Terminator 2 who helped create Skynet. That was kind of cool. And even though he never really says anything, just sort of the vibe you get when you see Jason Momoa as Aquaman, that's pretty cool. I mean, I have real high hopes for him. It's just like, wait a minute, why are these guys assigned what are apparently all their superhero logos? Why is this Why has this happened? Why is this going on? It makes no sense. And then there's this whole stuff with what they call the Nightmare with a K during the movie. It's like this weird vision Batman has of the future where Superman has become this dictator and stuff. And like, um, this is also something you could probably cut out of the movie and it really wouldn't change anything. But again, it's really clumsy shoehorning stuff for future movies. Now, the idea of Batman as this kind of resistance leader and him wearing this long coat a la the possible future of Damian Wayne, that was kind of cool. And it's hard not to be kind of perk up your eyebrows if you're a comic book fan when you see that giant Omega symbol in the ground because you know that's basically the symbol of Darkseid, one of the biggest, baddest dudes in the entire DC universe. And oh yeah, then parademons show up fighting for Superman. And I have to say, I really did like this interpretation of parademons. They're sort of like these creepy bug guys. They remind me a little bit of the Geonosians from Star Wars. In the comics, the parademons look a little bit more like people with just sort of funky wings. Here, they're much creepier, and I really genuinely did like the interpretation there. All right, so I've been going on about this for 20 minutes, and I'm sure if I sit here and think about it a little bit more, I could probably think of more things to complain about. But I think I've made my main points fairly clearly. While there are some nice moments, and oh yeah, one more thing before I go. There's this one line in the movie that literally made me go like, in the theater. And that's where Superman says to Lois, who has just used his real name while standing in the middle of the streets of Metropolis. I mean, literally, like there's like a cab driver. She's just gotten out of a cab. There's a guy not 10 feet away, and she calls Superman Clark. He says, "No one can in this world can stay good forever. F you, whoever wrote that. That is the biggest piece of proof ever that you don't get Superman." I mean, Superman would basically have to say something that in like deny the Holocaust or something. And I apologize for using that, but that's the first thing that comes to my mind. That in order to say something that would be more out of character for him. That is not something Superman believes at all in any interpretation of this character where he has not turned evil that I can think of. And incidentally, I hate evil Superman stories. Superman believes in the good in everyone, and he never gives up that belief, ever. He never. He always believes that there's a chance for someone to redeem themselves, to turn their life around, and that they can be better. Superman believes in us. That is one of the things that makes Superman truly great. That's one of the things that makes Superman my favorite superhero. I mean, look at what it is. I mean, he even kind of has this conversation about how he's just some guy from Kansas. Yes, that's exactly right. The whole thing about Superman is that he's this guy from one of the big things about Superman is that he's this guy from Kansas, basically, who has these extraordinary powers, and he chooses to go out there and do good, to help people, and to never give up, and to believe that people and the world and humanity in general can be good, even if they screw up, even if they make mistakes. You know, he takes those values, those ideas that were given to him by his parents. You know, just these simple farmers, simple ordinary people who rooted him in those beliefs so that this godlike power that he wields wouldn't go to his head and turn him into a monster. And because they succeeded in that, that is why Superman is a great hero. That, and as I've repeatedly said in some of my other reviews, particularly my Supergirl reviews, Superman also, his greatest power, it's not the invulnerability, it's not the super speed, it's not the heat vision, it is wisdom. The wisdom to use his powers correctly. The wisdom to always find another way rather than killing someone to solve a problem. I mean, never mind for one of the example stories, like from the 80s, where he actually was forced to kill three Kryptonians using kryptonite because there was just no way to stop them and no prison on Earth could hold them. He suffered from such enormous guilt over this act that he exiled himself into space of his own free will for an entire year just to come to grips with what he had done. So, yeah, casting on this movie, pretty good. Actors, I don't always agree with what was written for them, but I can't complain about anyone's performance. It's just that this was a movie written by people who don't understand what makes these characters good and don't understand them in general. They don't understand what makes comics fun. And instead, we get this joyless Hollywood bullshit. So, yeah, at this point, I think I'm ready to drop the mic, as the youngins say, and call it here. Ahem. As always, guys, please comment, rate, and subscribe. You can also join me on Twitter at Hoosier Jedi, and you can also find me on Tumblr at Jedi Reviewer. Till next time, take care and have a good one.